Over the past few months, the unusual crime of child abduction has made headlines, notably after baby Abby Humphreys was seized from hospital in Nottingham. In that case, of course, the woman has been charged and is awaiting trial. But there have been two other series of attempted kidnaps which are causing police a great deal of concern. One group of offences is centred in West Yorkshire. The other, perhaps unrelated, is in Bristol and in Gloucester. The cases in West Yorkshire have all been unsuccessful, but they've been going on for 2 years now. There have been no fewer than 29 reported attempted abductions, either by a woman on her own, or in one case by a woman with a man who was pretending to be a police officer. In each case, the woman has posed as a social worker or as a health visitor, but she's fled when challenged to produce identification. In Bristol and Gloucester, the offences have all involved women who have posed as health visitors, or as social workers again. There have been 7 reported cases in a month, all between the 4th of July and the 4th of August. Lisa, tell me what happened in your case.
I answered the door. There was a lady stood there in a blue uniform. She said to me, "Hello, I'm your health visitor. I come to speak to you and see your child." As I looked at her, I noticed that she had no folder or paperwork with records of my children, so I asked her for her ID badge. She said, "I'll nip back to the car and get it." With that, I went into the front room, and as I looked out the window, I noticed that she got into a blue Ford Escort and drove off.
A blue Ford Escort?
Yeah.
You didn't get his number, did you?
All I know is it was A registration.
A registered. Now, she was wearing a necklace you described to the police. Tell us about that.
It was golden colour, and it had a name on it, or it could have said mother, but I know it began with M.
Now, Anne, your case was strikingly similar in some ways. Just explain again what happened.
Well, the same thing happened. That she came to the door and she said that she was my health visitor. And she said, "Can I see Nicola?" She called her Nicola.
She knew her name?
Yes. And I said, "What for?" And she said, "I've got reason to believe she's been sexually abused." I said, "That's rubbish."
What did you say?
Well, she said, "Can I have her?" I said, "No, she wasn't here." I said she was in the city with her sister.
What would you have done if Nicola had been in the house?
Well, I think I would have let her have her because she was so convincing.
Now, what was she like? Give us a description of this woman.
She had short, spiky black hair, plain pink t-shirt, a flory skirt, pink sandals. She had a stud in her ear, and she had a black briefcase in her hand.
Now, this is a different woman from Lisa's, but on the other hand, there was somebody else in her company.
In the car, I didn't really see her very well.
But your neighbour did get a description. Now, what did she say?
Well, she said that she'd seen the same car up there a week before, circling around. So she recognised them.
And what was the car like? Can you recall?
It was a white one, that's all I know.
It was white.
I didn't know the mate.
And you think that you'd seen one of these women again, I think last week sometime.
Yeah, down on Southmead Road, but that was in a blue Escort.
And what happened?
She just glared at me. Like, she recognised me. That's about all.
It's all pretty terrifying. David Niven, as chairman of the British Association of Social Workers, what do parents do? What does anybody do? Somebody comes, an official comes to the door and says, "I want to take your child away."
Well, the clear advice is don't let them. Ever. No social worker or health visitor or anybody posing as one of these people who arrives out the blue at somebody's house can take your child away, and the clear advice is do not let them. And in the case of social workers, if anybody poses as a social worker and says they want to medically examine your child, don't let them either. A genuine social worker wouldn't dream of doing that.
But we read in the papers, we see on the news cases of children being taken into care. You're saying it doesn't happen like this?
It doesn't happen like this. There's a procedure to go through, and social workers have to go to court and convince a court and so forth. It just doesn't happen like this. The clear advice is phone the police.
Lisa, did you phone the police? What was your first instinct? Because I know the police suspect an awful lot of people don't tell them.
First thing I'd done, once I shut the door and realised she wasn't coming back, I phoned my mother. She told me to phone the clinic, in which I did. They said they hadn't sent anyone out, and it wasn't until then that under their advice, I phoned the police.
You wouldn't have done so otherwise?
No.
DC Rob Jones, it is quite alarming. It's extraordinary, actually, that they don't seem to have abducted a child yet, despite all these attempts.
Yes, I'm sure that's more by luck than judgment. We're certainly very, very concerned to catch these women. before, in fact, they are successful.
They're becoming more determined, apparently.
Yes, it certainly would appear so. Certainly with Lisa's last incident, where they'd moved up to a nurse's uniform, or a pseudo-nurse's uniform, it certainly gives rise to the suspicion that they're becoming more and more persistent and more able to pass himself off as a helper.
And this two work in the Bristol, Gloucester area seem to be sort of swapping roles as publicity gets hot on one of them.
That certainly seems to be the case. Certainly the descriptions of the two women in most of the cases, or in fact all of the cases that we're featuring here tonight, are very, very similar. The way they operate is very, very similar, although I cannot discount the fact that they may be using wigs.
There's been a description of one of the women with a very different sort of hairstyle.
Yes, there has, yes.
You think that many of these cases are simply not reported at all?
Yes, I'm sure that's the case. I'm sure many people feel that it's a call not necessary for the police. But I would urge those people on any occasion, if they are unhappy, to phone us straight away.
Is this just in the Bristol, Gloucester area, in the Leeds, West Yorkshire area, or anywhere in the country?
Well, myself, I'm particularly interested in cases within the southwest. However, I would appeal to viewers on a national basis that if they are approached by these women, to contact their local police station.
Do you think the police actually take these things all that seriously? I mean, after all, in these cases, it's very hard for the police to say a crime has been committed.
Yes, it's not a question of not taking it seriously. I think that often the cases are reported as a suspicious incident, perhaps recorded in such a way, and therefore they perhaps fall through the net of a criminal investigation.
David Niven, just once again, quite emphatically, somebody comes to the door, wants to medically examine your child, wants to take your child away. The answer is simply no, shut the door in their face.
Correct, absolutely.
And please call the police.
Please call the police if you're suspicious.
If you have any suspicions, if you've been targeted anywhere in Britain, not just in Bristol, if you haven't yet told the police, if you can help in any way on this case, or indeed you think you might help clear up other cases, do please call 0500 600 600. That's the free call number here to the studio, 0500 600 600. If you'd prefer to call the Bristol Inquiry Team direct, the number there is 0272 454 855. That's 0272, the code for Bristol, of course, 454 855.
On the child abduction case, two police officers, one from London and one from Manchester, have phoned to say that there have been similar cases in their areas. There are quite a lot more calls, but we'll keep you posted maybe later on, because we'll keep you posted. Thanks.
Out of that series of attempted abductions, partly in Leeds and others in Bristol, two women in Bristol posing as health visitors had threatened to take away children, and there have been 8 reported cases in the area within a month. You've got a huge volume of calls.
Yes, we've had an excess of 85 calls, a very, very good response from all over the country, confirming our worst nightmares.
Which are?
Which are that these incidents are happening throughout, well, nationwide. I'm particularly interested, however, to appeal to people in the southwest in particular, to try and come forward with a name of a person that we wish to trace in connection with our inquiry.
You've got 2 very, very good descriptions. Quickly remind us of them.
We have the woman, 25 to 35, with a dark spiky hair, and we have the other one with a bob style haircut, slightly older, with a necklace with the M on the front. I would appeal to any member of the public, please, if you have any suspicions at all, please come forward. We need to trace these women before they actually do carry out and take a child.
Okay, so those are the women that we need to hear about, and for heaven's sake, if anybody has tried to take your child away, please call us or call your police. And we have got advice from the social workers and from health visitors. Under no circumstances should anybody come to your door and ask to take your child away or medically examine them under the sort of circumstances that should leave you in any way suspicious. If you are suspicious, call the police.
Levi Belfield was found guilty of the murders of Amélie Delagrange and Marcia MacDonald and the attempted murder of Kate Sheedy. The judge told Belfield that he would never be considered for parole and must spend the rest of his life in prison. But the story doesn't end here. On the 21st of March 2002, 13-year-old Millie Dowler was abducted close to her home in Walton-on-Thames. Her body was found 6 months later in Yakeley Heath Woods in Hampshire. Millie had been brutally murdered. Levi Belfield lived directly opposite the site where Millie went missing. This red car, potentially involved in the abduction, was caught on camera, pulling out of Belfield's Road that same afternoon. Belfield's then partner owned a red Daewoo Nexia. Was this Levi Belfield? Was Millie inside the car? That investigation is ongoing.